Hey, I'm Dr. Tackett, and we are live at 12:05. And today, what I want to talk about is a hole in your head. And this hole in your head has a significant variable to it. But though this talk pertains to everybody listening right now, I want parents that have kids that play contact sports to pay close attention to this. And I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. But right now, I want to get back to this hole in your head. I want you to visualize this, like this is your brain. And then it turns into the brain stem, which sits right in this little hole, and then the spinal cord goes down. Now that brain and spinal cord is actually surrounded, encased by a fluid. It's called cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. And that fluid was thought to have a cushion component for the nerves within the bones, between the bones and the nerves. Gives it that little bit of spacing. And while that's true, that fluid actually recently has been discovered that it has some more really significant components to it. And one of the main things about that CSF is that it's considered now to be like the garbage collector for your brain. So if you can picture, this fluid comes up through the hole around your brain and back down. This is just like it's like a sink where it's escaping through there. Well, now that fluid, when you sleep, your brain shrinks a little bit. And when that brain shrinks a little bit, those little crevices that you see in the brain, well, that fluid's able to get in there and it pulls out the byproduct of all this electrical activity, the garbage, and it brings it out and down through this hole again. Now that's significant because it's essentially cleansing your brain, right? So that is a significant variable. But now I want to talk about this bone, which lines right up perfectly with that hole. And you've heard about this before. It's the atlas bone, upper cervical spine. Well, the atlas bone has a pair of joints that allow movement between these two bones. And when you have movement, well, that's healthy. And when you don't have movement or alignment, well, that can compromise things. Now this brings me back to your kids. Kids are sitting all day long, and when you have these little athletes, they're sitting all day, then they go play their sport for an hour, incurring all these forces into their spine. So they're out there doing that for about an hour, and then what do? They go back and they sit. Well, that is what creates a lack of function and motion in the spinal bone in relation to this little hole right there. So what does it do? It leaves these kids susceptible to all sorts of symptoms. One in particular you might experience is headaches. Headaches and also difficulty concentrating, especially after a concussion. Now I work with these two bones in particular because I'm an upper cervical spine specialist, and I've studied with some amazing doctors, but one in particular is Dr. Joe Klaus, and actually his wife, Dr. Carolyn Klaus. Terrific friends of mine. They've studied and practiced for over 30 years, and they developed a protocol that is very specific. Dr. Joe is actually the chiropractor for the Boston Bruins, and he has been for 5 years. Now, when those players line up to see Dr. Joe, they're not lining up because there's back and neck pain involved with them. They're lining up for two main reasons. Number one is performance. Because when you improve that nervous system and you clear things out, you function better and you perform better. And as an athlete, that's key, right? And number two, what that does is it also prevents injuries. So when your nervous system's functioning well, muscles are called on immediately when they're supposed to, well, you function better and you prevent that potential for injury. Now this is very important, and I want you folks to take care of your kids and make sure they get up and move around as much as they possibly can throughout the day, because summertime's coming. No sense in letting them sit all day over the summer when they don't have to sit at a desk. But just know this, I care about you and I care about your family, and I'm Dr. Tackett, and we'll be here next Tuesday, live at 12:05.